Thank you, Jan and Klaus. Well, next speaker up here is Bernhard Schmitt. Up until last year, we could introduce him by telling he plays the violin, but since this is common knowledge now, I'll tell something different. So first of all, you've heard this moving notes and everything in the previous talk. That's something he had built mainly and all the tests around it, so that's very interesting. He has already upgraded a whole spaceship to Neos 9. And now it was about eating your own dog food, means a real-life project, upgrading this one to Neos 9. Please welcome on stage Bernhard Schmitt.
So good morning and hello fellow Neosians, and welcome to this year's episode of Graph Practice. So that's a new term, and it means that after all those years of talking about how awesome everything will be once Neos 9 is released, it's now time to talk about the things that have been done now that Neos 9 is released. So this is our first Neos 9 project in our company. The customer, they are the Automobilgruppe Nord AG, or short ANAG. And as the name already implies, they're a car-related company that provides a variety of services to independent car dealerships, for example. So imagine you're a dealership or a garage, and you don't want to depend on one of the large car manufacturers. You have to deal with the issue that you order stuff in really low amounts, and that's more expensive. So you have to find a solution for that. And usually you team up with other partners to build a so-called purchasing pool, so you order stuff in larger quantities. And that's exactly where the ANAG steps in. It mainly, but not only, provides such a purchasing pool, and by that connects more than 800 of those independent partners to dozens of supplier shops or other information systems. And this basically provides a win-win situation because, as said, the partners can purchase products at lower prices, and the suppliers get a more steady flow of orders. But that's not all they do. They also offer additional services like their own information systems on what to actually purchase or what to be aware of. And they also offer exclusive services to their members, like insurances, for example, which the large car manufacturers do as well. And the third point is knowledge transfer. So there are a lot of best practice articles that are important to those partners, and also webinars, like they can join those live, or they can watch them in an archive and get information from there. So the central software system for this is the so-called Partnernet. It's a single entry point where the users have exactly one account where they log in, and from there they can access lots of other systems like the supplier shops or the different information systems where protected information is provided. That means that this requires a single sign-on solution, because if you have like a dozen or 2 dozen of web shops, you don't want to manage 2 dozen of accounts. Also, as you might imagine, the end users of the system are not technical professionals, so this has to be easily usable, right? So we need a clear overview about what services are available, because that's what the whole company provides as a value. And the users should be able to find the place they're looking for really fast. So the fewer clicks, the better. So if you do a relaunch of such a system, you basically first ask the question, why do we do this in the first place? I mean, it worked before, but why doesn't it work anymore? Why does it need really a relaunch? So one thing was that the previous system was very limited in content management capabilities. So the editors couldn't do very much on their website, and they often got confused. That was the first point where we said, okay, we can help with that using Neos. And also for the end users, there was a lot of room for improvement. So it was rather hard to find anything on the site. And yeah, also the users got confused rather often. So. And what's also required now in the relaunch is to help filter the necessary content or the appropriate content for the users is personalized content. So depending on the role you have in your systems, for example, if you're like a buyer who wants to basically access those shops, there is no need to see the other parts because you won't interact with those anyway. Then there's the point of future-proofness and the fun of replacing a legacy system. So this one was more than a decade old, which has its ups and downs for us, because on the upside, the bar isn't set too high, right? Because you're competing with software that's a decade old. But you also have to keep in mind that the next relaunch will probably also be in 10 years from now. So you also have to be aware of your own future self, right? So think of yourself in 10 years, and hopefully the code you write now isn't too bad, right? Also, there have been issues. Because one of the central part of the system is being connected to those shops, right? Because if there is no discount for the users, there is no value for the users, or a lot less value. So maintaining this connection to the other systems is of crucial importance. And there were more and more issues with that. And also, there is always the requirement to add more systems to this single sign-on process, and that was also no longer possible. And we were bound to find out why, which brings us to point 3, security. So basically, if you design such a single sign-on system, you have basically 2 options, right? Either you use an established international industry standard, or you do it yourself. And let's just say we switched to the standard, which also explained why there were those issues connecting your systems, because some shops might not be too happy about your self-implemented security. It also helped reducing redundancies, because then there was really that single account to be used. So let's start with security. Very important issue. As you see, future-proofness and security are kind of intertwined. So what can we do here? So the status quo, the customer had a CRM system which contained all the necessary information about the users, their assignments to roles, what company they work for, and so on. So basically everything we needed. But it didn't have sufficient identity provider capabilities, so we couldn't use it as an IDP. What we did instead is we teamed up with our friends at .de to set up a Keycloak instance, which then served as the identity provider. There was an importer being written to import from the CRM to Keycloak, and then those customer data sets were users that we could actually authenticate. And the complete architecture looks as this, right? So you log in into the Partnernet, you're redirected to Keycloak to do that, you're redirected back, and then you can click on some tile to the respective shop, and that shop will then fetch the necessary token from Keycloak again to confirm the authentication, and then you're logged in there again. So it's basically the OIDC standard we used, and it worked quite well. So for us, it was rather easy. I mean, thankfully, there's an awesome package from Flow Native that you can just install, the OIDC package. You set up your OIDC client in Keycloak, do a little bit of configuration, and then you can authenticate users in Neos. That's rather fast. I think it's a thing of a few hours, and you're done. And you're happy that you also can already start editing content and assigning the content to the different roles and so on. But that's one system done and a few dozen to go. So the actually interesting part of this project was the diversity of contacts you had. So basically every single web shop or information system had some kind of either internal technical department or an external one. And there's also the difference between your typical small to medium enterprise or the large corporations, the international ones. And so I categorized them a bit. There are those small to medium businesses, they are rather enthusiastic about this. We had some really thankful calls like, okay, we wanted to replace this old authentication mechanism for years now. Thanks that we can do that. And they were also very competent. They also already knew how OIDC works. And that was the easy part. Then there are the rather reluctant ones that basically asked us to, hey, could you please provide us a step-by-step explanation how we should implement this in our system? So after a few of those, you're pretty decent at explaining how OIDC works. Also, there were some of those that were reluctant because they feared the switch to the new protocol because of security issues, which is kind of, weird. It's basically the wrong way around. But there has to be quite some explanations being done there. And then there are the major corporations. They have highly professional IT departments. They know exactly what they're doing. They know the protocol really, really better than yourself. But then the department is on another continent. So in another time zone, you have to do those meetings. And they already have a plan for the next quarter. So you have to somehow sneak your project in. Otherwise, you have to wait for 3 months because they have a time slot available for that. So what does this mean for such a project? So it's highly parallel. You have like 12 tickets open, connecting to this system, connecting to that system, and they all have to run in parallel, or they can also run in parallel. And for each partner shop, there was like one contact person or multiple contact persons, and there was a lot of emails and phone calls going on. It's rather hard to track the progress because, you have on your board you have 12 tickets, and they're all in progress for like a month or 3. All those systems, from our perspective, are a black box, right? Because we told them how to build their landing page where we can send the user tools to start the authentication process. We did know the URLs, so we could build the buttons to go there. But from then on, it either worked or it didn't. And we didn't have any information about why something didn't work. So what we did was we started as early as possible to get in contact with everyone, and then just run it along as a cross-cutting concern along the whole project. So while that was in progress, we could already start, because our application could already authenticate versus Keycloak, so we could start with the ease of use part. Again, the status quo, there was a separate system that users could log in, and that provided all the information about the services provided by the ANAG, and you could read a lot of articles about being a member is profitable for you and so on. But you already had to switch to another system to learn what other systems exist. And this whole overview about the available services, shouldn't that be our platform? And yep, that was the plan. So this service information system was integrated as the central part of the Partnernet. Then we wanted to have personalized content. So it's basically a kind of restriction who can see what. I mean, it's not a security issue because, I mean, they're basically allowed to see the content for the other departments of their own company. That's not a security problem, but an ease of use problem, right? If you don't want to see stuff that you don't want to interact with. So that's not something we did. And we created the service navigation. That is the first entry point to have an overview about what services are available, have options of filtering those to find what you're looking for rather fast. And then there were, of course, those special user groups that should be handled completely differently than all the other ones, and they simply got another dashboard on the starting page, and that's what's basically it. Then, editorial ease of use. I mean, we have certain advantages using EOS in that regard. What was important for us was having structural semantics, like we have the dashboard, everyone understands what that's supposed to be. Then we have service categories. They have meaning for the different departments, like sales or finances and so on. And we have the usual editor experience provided by Neos for free, basically. So whether you edit a link to a supplier shop or a service category, it doesn't make much of a difference because the Neos UI will just guide you through the process because it provides the necessary properties, for example. And while we were doing this, all those login tiles that we prepared, I mean, they could already write the descriptions for the different shops, although they were not finally connected yet. And one by one, those tiles that you can click on went live and came to life once the supplier shop contacts solved their issues. That was quite nice to look at. So, I'm a big fan of show, don't tell. So let's have a look at what this looks like. So this is the central login page, right? So that's where you get redirected once you click on the login button or just enter the URL. Then you log in. That's the Keycloak instance. It redirects back to our system. There you have the search box above, then the favorites. So if you have like 3 or 4 shops or something that you usually interact with, you can put them on a favorite list. That's there. Here's the service navigation with the different categories. They're already filtered to your role. On that, again, on the left side, you have the categories again. And here are the actual services where you can add them or remove them from your favorite list, or can directly go to the shop, for example, which will then sign on, in this case, to the Castrol shop. And you're asked some questions that I couldn't answer, so I didn't. But basically, you're also already logged in there, and you can start shopping at your discounted prices. So that was the main part, but they have also additional content on that website, right? Like all those how-tos. So there's a lot of knowledge necessary to run a car-related business, obviously. So there are lots of webinars and other articles that can be searched, filtered, that can properly be managed in EOS. And because if you can have one academy, that's what they called it, you can also have 2, right? So they built 2 academies, one of their own and one that's directed to the respective Academy pages or how-to collections from their partner shops. Then search was an important part because, I mean, you don't need it too often because the service navigation worked pretty well, but there are also like dozens and hundreds and maybe thousands of documents, PDFs that you can download, like descriptions for car parts or whatever. And so we implemented those with the finding those using full text search over PDF content. So while we were doing that, there's also this future-proofness thing to keep in mind. Whenever you implement a new feature, think of your future self, right? So often the question, does it scale? Not in the meaning of, oh, we'll have millions of users. That's not what is going to happen. But this has to be extensible, right? So they want to add further shops, they want to add further functionality. Does the architecture help with that we chose? We already chose the ODC standard. That should scale very well because you can go with the international standard, go to the next shop and say, yeah, that's what we're using, have fun. And there's very little discussion about that. That works pretty well. So our internal architecture, that's what the first part looked like, right? So we have the so-called shared kernel. Everything that is insensitive to any context is there, right? So presentational components, for example. So your text or image or text with image component, it doesn't really care about whether it's used for a product, for a service, for an event, or whatever. So it can be reused across contexts. Then we have our core domain. So that's where the business happens, right? So this login, this single sign-on, that's something that must work. Otherwise, we lose a lot of value. And we have this service navigation, which is really important for the users so they can actually use the system. So that's what we defined or distilled as the core domain. That's the Partnernet itself with one tightly coupled module, the service information system. That kind of made sense to us. And then what we added was additional subcontexts. So like the Academy or the magazine where news articles were published, they're kind of disconnected to the rest. I mean, they don't have anything to do with like the login process or something like that, but they can make use of the existing infrastructure. We can also assign them to users or groups or something, and we can use the shared components to style them. That goes for the Academy or the magazine. And we can, of course, use and define additional node types, right? So your regular magazine article, that doesn't make sense in the service information system, but we can just add those to the magazine. That works just fine. So then was Go Live. So an architecture to work on Go Live is rather easy because you know all the requirements and can adjust your architecture to that. So, but what happens next? That's the interesting part. Because especially if a project goes well, the customer is inclined to require additional features, right? So, okay, this worked. Can we do that also? So the next question was, we have that old corporate site. Can we integrate that into the system? I mean, it's not super important. We don't want to spend too much money on it, but can we do this? I mean, Neos is multi-site capable. Why not just do that? We can reuse lots of content node types. For example, whether you use text with image on a news article or on the corporate website, that's not a problem. Just reuse that. Or if there are a few new node types, you can again reuse the shared components. And the next question was, hey, some of our suppliers, they don't even have a shop. Can you build one for them? The nice thing about that is, at first, we didn't need to integrate payment. That makes everything very much easier. And they also could define those discounted prices right in the Partnernet, right? So, and we also already are logged in and don't need to add another SSO system. We also could add some domain-specific properties, like do we need a forklift for that product? That's something that I never would have thought about by myself, because I usually don't buy stuff in forklift size amounts. But it's an issue. And the question was, okay, can we build this in NEOS? And I mean, that's a rhetorical question. Of course we can. And so we did that the same way we built the other packages. And that's how the whole thing was integrated in the architecture. So we have the corporate side parallel to the Partnernet, using the same presentational components and other parts from the shared kernel. And the shop we again built on top of the Partnernet, because we needed the sign-on for those discounted prices. We didn't need that for the corporate side, for example. And it fit in there quite well. So at least in my understanding, that's what you call a modulith. So there are dependencies, right? This is not microservice, but there are dependencies between the packages, but they're clearly visible. Example, in our case, it's by package name. The more dots and additional name parts it gets, it obviously depends on the one with the fewer parts. They have to make sense. And they have to be unidirectional, right? So bidirectional dependencies, that's the way to your big ball of mud that you want to avoid. And you have to ensure replaceability or removability of simple modules, right? For example, if you remove the academy, does the rest still work? I haven't tried it out, but I'm pretty sure it would, because the other parts are independent from the academy, for example. So yes, we have the ODC integration. We have a modulith architecture that's very well extendable and also clean enough to survive, hopefully, a full decade. And we started on NEOS 9 because, well, NEOS 8 won't survive a full decade. Even 8.4, I think it's 3 years or something like that. And so we wanted to start on a new version. And how did that help? So the first question I asked myself was, okay, could this have been done in NEOS 8 as well, besides the future-proofness part? And the answer was yes, but. So of course, nothing of this couldn't have been done in NEOS 8. But what we're doing is a lot of stuff in the integration part we do in PHP instead of in Fusion. And interacting with the new CR is so much more fun than interacting with the old one. Like the subgraph API or the dimension handling, for example. It's no more array shuffling and guessing what is now the actual language I'm looking at. And that's much more clearer. Then the extensibility patterns. Also, if I switch back to my NEOS 8 projects, it was like, hey, okay, this can be easily done. But yes, is there a signal for that? That got a lot more extensible in NEOS 9 because we have basically all information about everything that ever happened. And given NEOS 9 is so thoroughly tested, I have a lot of more confidence in the capabilities of the system, especially when it comes to moving nodes. That works really well in NEOS 9. And then it's testability, because the NEOS 9 test suite can also be used in your customer projects, and we did that. And it helps a lot of being confident about your own project. It gets you into this more requirements please phase, because whatever happens, okay, I'll write a test for that. That works. And sometimes when I go back to those NEOS 8 projects, and there is a like complex requirement, including the publishing process or something like that. I was like, hey, that's not a problem. We can just write a test suite for that. and then, oh, no, we can't. So just being able to do that in EOS 9 is really nice. So for example, this service navigation, so you can define the categories, so what users can see this category, and on that category, the different services, what user can see those services, and those kind of interact, right? So you can add users that wouldn't have access to the category, to a service, but they should then see the category, but only that one service in the category, and so on. And you can include single users, and you can also exclude users that shouldn't see that service, although they are in the respective group. And that's something you don't want to try out in the editor, right? So what we did, we wrote a little test suite. Those of you who attended the workshop already know that. And so what EOS 9 provides is that you just can define your nodes that you want as a worst case scenario, for example. So we define a lot of nodes here, like those service information pages and categories, and they are assigned to roles and single users. Then we basically log in as that user and test what elements are in the service navigation. So the effect of this was that we implemented, or every single step in the implementation of the service navigation, so every single customer requirement always required exactly one attempt. So we built that, we tested that, built it, deployed it, it worked. The next requirement, same story again. And that's not only a new level of confidence for yourself, but also for the customer, right? Because everything you do just works. That's really nice. So of course, we also had a few issues. So we started on beta 4. That's something I wouldn't, in hindsight, I wouldn't have told anyone outside the core team to do that. We launched on beta 13. And in contrast to what we promised us, yes, we still did a few breaking changes. So to cope with that, we raised PHP stand to level 9 in our project. So we directly found anything that changed. We don't have too many editors in the system, so the conflicts that could occur before the release candidate, they weren't much of meaning to us. We have had some issues with UriPath segments no longer being unique or being enforced to be unique, so editors have to take care of that. And the ominous sync button on the top right, where you have to sync your workspace manually to the live system or live workspace. Then again, there was package compatibility. We heard about that before. So we were doing the beta hopping thing also because we had another customer project started on a higher beta. So we had to provide especially our Zeitgeist packages in multiple EOS 9 compatible versions at the same time. That was a bit annoying, but also you can learn a lot about doing that. And as a consequence, there are now lots of, especially our Zeitgeist packages, available also in EOS 9 compatible versions, and we added also a few other packages to the list of compatible packages, like the lightweight Elasticsearch package from Sandstorm. And so you can use those as well. So the final question, was it worth it doing this on EOS 9? I'd say definitely yes, and yes, I would do it again, and I will do it again. So it's not only my personal recommendation, it's now also a recommendation of the NEOS community in total. So if you have a new project, try out NEOS 9, it's really fun. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bernhard. First of all, we have some. Bring them. Oh yeah, we have some presents for you. Great talk. Thanks a lot.
That famous NEOS N that you guys can buy, by the way.
I will try to shape it in this 4D manner that it's actually supposed to look like.
Oh, yeah,
Let's
perfect.
see if that works.
And some honey, some NEOS branded honey.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, though, I think
Well, sorry,
you have
I
a few seconds to send some questions if you
Yeah.
have any left.
I forgot to mention, you can build the N. I give you 3 minutes while they. No, we already have some here. Well, the first question became obsolete because you already answered it. But how much of the roles that you have is in the? But how much of this is in the core? Are privileges fully implemented for the new CR?
So yes, we have security implemented. You can do a lot of stuff also with the new concept of subtree tags. So you can basically tag a whole part of your content tree and then define, okay, you have to have the following role to see everything that's tagged with that. But we didn't use that in our project because email addresses are not valid subtree tags, and also as I said, it wasn't really a security concern, but just some user guiding concern, and that's easier implemented in the presentation actually.
Very good. That was the only question as I see now. But I have a question from the talk before that you will be able to answer. There were questions on Sebastian's and Toby's talk, and there was a question: is the migrated dependency still compatible with Neos 8? I think that's a very general question you might be able to answer.
So yes, and as always in software development, the answer is it depends.
It depends. If you ask a dev, it depends. If you ask a lawyer, it depends. It's always it depends.
So I should have become a lawyer.
Ah.
If you have a package that you upgrade to Neos 9 and it requires the content repository and interacts with it, then it's really, really hard to build a version that's both compatible to Neos 8 and 9. So I'd recommend don't do that. Do a new major and release that. But if it doesn't, like for example, the OIDC package from FlowNative, it doesn't interact with the CR. So you can just write, yeah, is compatible to Neos 9, check. That's possible.
Very good. I saw your boss already pulled out his cards. Does he sometimes play card tricks on you just to confuse you while you're coding or something?
Hopefully not.
Well, thanks a lot,
Bernhard.
Bernhard.
Another challenge.
Yeah. Thank you very much. You won't need the honey to glue the N.
But can I?
You can if you
try.
want. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your talk, for your work. Your applause.
All right. And now we don't have a clicker, but we do have 20 minutes break. Oh, we do have a clicker.
And we have
a 20 minutes break, so more coffee. Try those spinach croissants. They're like horribly good. And at 12, we'll be talking about how to elevate code quality here and about lightweight requirements engineering for IT projects up on the studio stage. Looking forward to seeing all your faces again.
Don't forget to rate this talk.
Rate the talk. Rate the talk. Vote, 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 vote.
A nice break.
Thank you.
Thank you.